You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
The views expressed by the individuals during this broadcast are their own opinions, and they may not be the same as those of their group or other organizations they may be involved with.
All medical advice during our broadcast is not a medical opinion and should be checked with your medical physician.
Oh yeah, baby, that's lovely.
Good morning. It's December the 22nd, and welcome to Psychedelics and Cannabis Educational News. We're live here at paceradio.net and 420pace.ca. Good morning, Rev Cindy. How you doing today?
I'm doing pretty well. How about yourself, Al?
Not too bad. Not too bad. I could have used a little bit more sleep last night, but other than that, I'm doing all right.
Yeah. You said you were up a couple of times during the night.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
I hate it when that happens.
Yeah, so do I. It doesn't happen all the time, but last night was just one of those nights. The dog was making some noise and this and that, and just restless sleep maybe is what it is. So.
That's right.
Yeah. And yourself, what's new and exciting?
Well, right now it is time to be Nova Scotia proud. I know that this is a cannabis network, but I'm going to talk sports for 5 seconds. And
Right.
Nova Scotia's own Sidney Crosby has just taken over his franchise's the points record from Mario Lemieux. And like I said, I know that we're cannabis, but Nova Scotia proud, go Sidney Crosby. Kind of happy to see that when I woke up this morning.
I seen that this morning in the news. So that's a long time. It takes a while. Those are big records that Mario and Wayne created in those days, and be able to beat them now, it's quite the feat. So
it is, and I met Sidney when he was 13 years old here in Windsor. He was here for celebration of the fact that we are the birthplace of hockey, and we had a little thing going on. So I met the kid when he was 13 years old, and at that point in time, he said someday, he goes, I'm gonna run the NHL and I'm gonna break all the records. And it was really cool to wake up and see him do that.
And he's gone and done that. All right. Other than sports, today we've got some cannabis news. We're going to be talking about what's going on down on the East Coast. Arrest for a well-known singer. We're going to be talking psychedelics, and we're going to talk about some of the stories that happened over 2025. As well as some medical stories as well that happened over the same time. So we'll get that out throughout the next hour. So what do you say we get started?
We should.
All right. First story of the day. Everybody has heard. So here we go.
Here we go. Coming to us from MJ Biz Daily. When is cannabis officially rescheduled? Schedule 3 timeline is unclear and has risks.
Yep. As everybody heard, Donald Trump signed the executive order to get the process restarted after it's been stalled since the election. So here we go. One day after President Donald Trump's long-anticipated executive order directing federal authorities to reclassify cannabis as a less dangerous drug, the $32 billion legal U.S. cannabis industry is posing a central question: when? Now, Trump's order instructs Attorney General Pam Bondi to reschedule cannabis in the most expeditious manner in accordance with federal law. But on the quickest realistic timeline, it could still be months before the promised benefits for research and tax relief appear legal, according to what legal experts tell MJ Biz Daily.
I wish I could give you something like an exact number. But there's just way too much discretion here, says Matthew Cavedon, who is the director of the Project on Criminal Justice at the Cato Institute, a Washington, D.C. based libertarian think tank. I can't say exactly how long that will take because there is no deadline, added Shane Pennington, who is a prominent administrative law expert and partner at Blank Rome.
Still, there is some idea, at least, of the bureaucratic and legal processes to be followed, and at least some credit is owed to President Joe Biden, who launched the initial cannabis reform process that Trump moved along on Thursday. However, if many steps are skipped or corners cut, there are significant risks that could delay the rescheduling entirely, legal experts warn.
Yeah, Pennington represented interested parties in the cannabis rescheduling hearings before a U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration law judge that were paused on the eve of Trump's inauguration. Those hearings were part of the cannabis rescheduling process begun under Biden in October of 2022.
Now, Trump's process built on that by recognizing that the August 2023 Health and Human Services finding that cannabis has a currently accepted medical use in the U.S. However, Trump went further than Biden and directed agencies to make that the change rather than simply review federal policy.
Nonetheless, the issue is they're going to have a bureaucratic gauntlet to run, Pennington said. In theory, Bondi could cancel the hearings, rendering an appeal of the hearings brought moot, and publish a final rule in the Federal Register classifying cannabis a Schedule III drug, quote unquote, in 5 days.
5 days, not business days, Pennington says. But once Bondi does that, there's another hurdle to clear: the courts. Supports have long expected lawsuits challenging the final rule.
Yeah. Some smart approaches to cannabis, a prominent legalization foe that challenged the Biden administration process, has already retained former Attorney General Bill Barr to represent it in court, according to Kevin Sabet, who is the organization's president and CEO. As we speak, we are preparing to file suit against the administration to block this rule if it should ever become final, Sabet said in a video posted to X. And Barr, who led the Justice Department in Trump's first term, has assured me we have an excellent case, he added.
Sam's argument isn't known, but observers predict it likely to challenge rescheduling on procedural grounds and allege that federal administration law wasn't obeyed. That's the process that dragged on all of last year after the DEA fielded 43,000 comments from the public on the question, some of which requested the still pausing hearings.
If Bondi goes too far too quickly, all it might take is one unfriendly judge in an obscure district to slap a stay on rescheduling and delay 280E relief and everything else identified, Cavden said. And there's a worst case scenario if a federal judge decides the process was bungled and cannabis rescheduling ends up mirrored in the lawsuits that legislation opponents have vowed to bring. It could be another 2 or 3 years before Schedule III is a reality, Cavden added. Wow.
Yeah, that's why, as fast as an industry may want rescheduling to happen, it may be preferable if it's done carefully and correctly. You do not want this to move fast, and frankly, after this many decades, it should. This shouldn't be a hard thing, but you do not want to have DOJ make a hasty call and have this held up in the courts because of some judge decided that you didn't do your homework.
Yeah.
So it's as everybody knows, Trump signed the Schedule III executive order to get the process going, and it's not something that happened overnight. As far as all of a sudden now things are Schedule III, and if they try that as smart approaches to cannabis, they're obviously going to take it to court and fight it.
Yep. Which they should. Like, I mean, it took how many years after Owen won his court case in the, Canadian Supreme Court, had to take it all the way and get the top judicial,
Supreme
group
Court
to say,
ours.
And maybe that's what the states need as well. And then it still took 3, 4, 5 years for them to actually bring it to fruition.
Yeah. Now there's some other things with the Schedule III, some notes that I made off to the side. And it says that only companies that can legally produce a Schedule III drug are pharmaceutical companies.
Yep.
The only companies that can legally sell a Schedule 3 drug are pharmacies. The only people that can legally distribute a Schedule 3 drug are pharmacies. Or
Yep.
pharmacists, sorry. And that prescription runs out every 3 months.
3 months.
Every 3
Wow.
months. Correct. Now,
Wow.
some other stuff they say, and I never even thought about this one, for example. Patients and intellectual property battles are coming. They say that strains, extraction processes, genetic lines, and formulations will be locked up by corporations. They say that home grows could become criminal without the Schedule 1 status. What they're saying is that Schedule 3 controlled substances can't be grown at home. They have to be they can't be done. Yeah, they can't be done at the house. They say dispensaries could disappear or change completely. The Schedule 3 distribution requires pharmacies and pharmacists nationwide. That means many dispensaries may have to shut down or change because they're not allowed to sell Schedule 3 drugs. So yeah, so I don't know. We'll see what happens.
It's going to cause, like the steps that the United States are about to go through are going to cause a lot of upheaval, a lot of arguments. But what I hope that most people can do is keep their eye on the prize and keep fighting and moving forward. And as much as upheaval as moving it to Schedule 3 may bring, it is a step forward. It is going from worse to not as bad, even though it's still bad.
The research is great. Them, recognizing for medical use, like Health Canada doesn't even have that.
No, it's a huge.
We've got a medical program for over 20 years.
Yeah,
they still
huge step forward, and it will cause some upheaval, but yay. Let's just hope it keeps continuing, even if it's at baby steps.
Yeah, exactly. Alrighty, from there, we're going to head to Nova Scotia with the next story.
Yeah, come all the way down here. Coming to us from the CBC, Nova Scotia dispensary raided following government directive to crack down on cannabis.
Yes, Nova Scotia RCMP say they issued a ticket and seized cannabis and cash after executing a search warrant at a cannabis dispensary in Digby, Nova Scotia. This seizure occurred 11 days after the provincial government called on all Nova Scotia police agencies to prioritize cannabis enforcement by identifying and disturbing illegal cannabis operations and distribution networks.
Mm-hmm. A lot of the RCMP has decided that they're just going to go on as they went before, but apparently those in Digby did not. Justice Minister Scott Armstrong had issued the directive and had written to 13 Mi'kmaq chiefs requesting their cooperation as police tackle the growing public safety problem of illegal, in this case, Indigenous cannabis sales. Police say officers seized various forms of cannabis and unstamped tobacco from an illegal Indigenous cannabis storefront on Highway 303 and detained one person who was later ticketed and released.
An RCMP spokesperson declined to confirm the name or address of the outlet and did not immediately respond to a follow-up question about the amount of the ticket. The operator of the Facebook page for the Peace and Friendship Trading Post in Digby confirmed in a direct message that the store was raided by the RCMP on Monday and that the dispensary had reopened. There you go.
It had reopened, yeah. So with all of the Indigenous dispensaries that we have here in Nova Scotia, this is the first raid. This was not a prominent in-your-face one, such as we have in the Millbrook area, that all have neon flashing lights and everything. But it's still very sad to see that it's actually starting to happen here. But yeah. I'm looking forward to when it gets to the courts. It's going to be another one of those ones that I feel is going to go all the way to the Supreme Court of Canada after it hits the Supreme Court of Nova Scotia. And I hope that we can set a precedent here so the Indigenous dispensaries can do their thing.
Yeah, because I'm not aware of any Indigenous parties that have have taken it to the Supreme Court.
No, we've got one here in Nova Scotia, because we had a number open up off the reserve areas. I think there's 5 of them now in the Halifax, in the main city area, in the Halifax area, and the first one was raided a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, maybe. And the only thing we have seen in court, and I think you and I reported on it, was when the chief went to say, like, listen, like, you know, like most of my employees are Indigenous and you're taking away their treaty rights by saying they can't hunt, they can't have a gun, they can't do, and they won that back. And that's all that's been done so far that we've heard, even with a number of people that got caught for, driving under the influence of cannabis. A number of medical patients have been caught for that here in Nova Scotia, and I haven't seen any of those in the courts either. And I'm really excited for these things to get to the courts and for those laws to finally, evolve.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, on to the next story.
Yeah, coming to us from International Cannabis Business Conference, the top international cannabis stories of 2025.
Okay, Czechia approves adult use cannabis legalization. One of the most noteworthy and inspiring news items of 2025 was Czechia's approval of a national adult use cannabis legalization measure. The legalization measure was the direct result of years of tireless work by cannabis advocates inside the European nation. The country's legalization model will involve permitting adults to cultivate up to 3 plants in their private residences and possess up to 100 grams of cannabis. And the legal Czech possession limit is the largest limit among legalized European countries.
Good Chesney.
Yeah.
Slovenia approves historic medical cannabis measure. It was a very big year for cannabis in Slovenia. This summer, nearly 3 months after Slovenia's parliament introduced a medical cannabis policy modernization measure, the European nation's National Assembly voted to officially approve the legislation. Yay! Many components of the successful measure in Slovenia are the most progressive medical cannabis provisions to ever be approved in Europe. Following the passage of the medical cannabis measure, lawmakers in Slovenia also introduced a bill that would legalize cannabis for adult use.
Next one was the executive order in the United States. This is at the federal level. The United States cannabis policy has largely been frozen in time for many decades. Cannabis has been listed as a Schedule I substance since the early 70s, despite many states having since legalized it for adult and or medical use. Just last week, United States President Donald Trump signed a historic executive order calling for cannabis to be rescheduled in an expedited fashion to Schedule III, and the executive order puts into motion the most significant policy change at the federal level in the U.S. since the enactment of prohibition, and will help provide the emerging cannabis industry with much needed tax relief, as well as boost cannabis research efforts by removing various hurdles.
So on to Germany. Germany's industry continued to expand. This is so exciting because I'm planning a trip to Germany in 2020.
All right.
Yeah. As the largest legal market in Europe, Germany's industry experienced considerable expansion in 2025. Further expansion is warranted, to be sure, but there was still a lot to celebrate in Germany this year. In the first 3 quarters of 2025, Germany's industry imported over 142 tons of medical cannabis products. By comparison, roughly 40.4 tons were imported in the first 3 quarters of 2024, marking an increase of over 350%. Holy cannoli. According to the Federal Association of Cannabis Cultivation Associations, BCAV's end-of-year data, 368 cultivation associations applications have now been approved. Cannabis opponents inside and outside of Germany's government worked hard in 2025 to hinder the industry's progress, and those efforts will undoubtedly continue into next year. However, cannabis advocates and industry members will never give up on the fight to keep Germany on the right side of history when it comes to cannabis policy, and their continued activism is inspiring.
Yes. Now, Switzerland trends towards adult use legalization was the top story. Switzerland's National Council Social Security and Public Health Committee gave preliminary approval to an adult use cannabis legalization plan by a 14-9 vote in February 2025. Later in the year, the government opened a 3-month public consultation period for a draft of the Swiss CanPG measure. The proposal calls for allowing adult residents to cultivate up to 3 cannabis plants in their private residences, setting a private adult possession limit of 75 grams and allowing residents to join member-based cultivation associations, among other things.
Yeah, so very cool. Pro-cannabis lawmaker elected prime minister in Thailand. Yay! Thailand approved a major policy change in 2022 that removed cannabis from the nation's narcotics list. Removed. The policy modernization move ushered in a new era for Thailand's cannabis industry, making the country in Southeast Asia one of the most popular markets on the planet almost overnight. The measure was largely championed by the then Minister of Public Health, Antuin Charnvical. Thailand has experienced a metaphorical roller coaster ride when it comes to cannabis policy and regulation. Fortunately, Antuin was elected Thailand's prime minister this past year, and that will hopefully help bring stability to the nation's emerging cannabis industry.
New Zealand removes license requirements for industrial hemp. Yet New Zealand is home to an emerging industrial hemp industry, and thanks to a change by the nation's government in 2025, New Zealand's industrial hemp sector should experience increased growth in size and scope. Industrial hemp will no longer require a license to grow or handle in New Zealand. The nation's cabinet approved a package of changes to scrap the current licensing regime for industrial hemp and replace it with more practical, proportionate regulatory approach according to the federal government.
Colombia approves use of medical cannabis flower. Woohoo, go Colombia. Government officials in Colombia approved the use of medical cannabis flower in 2025. The Colombian government issued Decree 1138 of 2025, which changed the rules on cannabis use, authorizing for the first time the use of the plant's flower for medical purposes in the South American nation.
Uruguay considers expanding legal sales to non-residents. Uruguay's executive director of the Institute of the Regulation and Control of Cannabis, Martin Rodriguez, confirmed in 2025 that lawmakers in the South American nation were considering expanding legal adult use cannabis sales to tourists and other non-residents. Uruguay became the first country to ever adopt the national recreational cannabis legalization measure in 2013, but has limited legal sales to residents only. Hopefully that changes soon after the new year.
Yeah, because I'd love to go to Uruguay. Cannabis research efforts get a boost in Brazil. When it comes to cannabis research, Brazil has emerged in recent years as a major international research hub. Even more research needs to be conducted in Brazil and everywhere else around the globe for that matter. But the amount of research being undertaken in Brazil these days is noteworthy. Brazilian Agricultural Research Agency, EMFRIA, received the green light in 2025 from health agency Anvisa to ramp up research on the cannabis plant, and received earmarked funding to do it as well.
Canada's industry continues to provide economic benefits. The legal cannabis market in Canada continues to serve as the top nation adult use market on the planet throughout 2025 and added to the overall economic benefits it has provided to the North American nation. And an industry report was shared in the House of Commons in November, which highlighted that Canada's legal cannabis industry has generated $5.4 billion for the federal and provincial government since October of 2018.
Morocco's legal cannabis industry expands. Cannabis being exported from Morocco to markets in other countries is not a new thing after all. Morocco has served as a top source for unregulated cannabis for decades, and they make wonderful hash there.
You sure do.
Sure do. However, policymakers and regulators in Morocco have worked in recent years to transition the nation's cannabis industry into a regulated system. Morocco officially entered the legal international medical cannabis market in 2025 with its first export to Australia. Additionally, the Moroccan Agency for Medicines and Health Products confirmed that 67 cannabis-derived products were granted marketing authorization in 2025.
Momentum continues to build for South Africa's cannabis industry. To date, South Africa's Agricultural Department has approved over 1,400 medical cannabis production permits, and the South African Health Products Regulatory Authority has issued 120 licenses for medical cannabis product exports. The new frontier of South Africa's emerging cannabis industry is regulating adult use sales. While legalized adult sales did not launch in 2025, the government did continue its efforts to set up the framework for recreational cannabis commerce. The South African Cannabis Club Alliance recently announced that numerous entities have united behind Project Indila, which serves as a collective policy and legislative framework to guide South Africa's transition towards a formalized rights-based and community-empowered cannabis community.
The passing of an international cannabis legend, internationally acclaimed attorney Peter Holmberg, one of the world's most brilliant cannabis policy and industry experts, passed away unexpectedly in 2025. Words cannot express how much he will be missed in the International Cannabis Business Conference team and so many other people around the globe. He was a gem of a person by every measure, and our thoughts and prayers continue to be with his family. Rest in peace, Mr. Holmberg. You will always be remembered and revered by everyone who was blessed to have known you.
There you go. Some of the top cannabis stories of 2025. It was good to see some of those stories. Some of them were, very important. Yes. Yeah. I know the bit. The executive order from Trump is big news, but there are some other stories in there that, countries that were legalizing all that.
Thailand, like that's huge. Thailand, like really, really huge. An Asian country coming out like this. Other Asian countries have death if you get caught. And exactly. So Thailand is huge. The first Asian country to come out and do that. And I pray that the rest of them follow and the rest of the world follows.
Yeah, exactly. Talking about getting caught, let's go down to our next story here. And then this will be our last one before we go to break. But let's get on to it. Here we go.
Coming to us from Mugglehead Magazine, Wiz Khalifa. He was sentenced to 9 months in a Romanian jail for burning one joint down on stage. One joint.
Yeah. A Romanian court has sentenced popular American hip-hop artist Wiz Khalifa to 9 months in prison for smoking weed at a music festival last year. He was found to be holding 18 grams of flower at the Beach Please event in seaside resort town Costatinas when police arrested him that evening. The renowned rapper, whose real name is Cameron Jabril Thomas, and who habitually smokes cannabis, was last seen performing alongside fellow artist Ghana in California last week. He is currently residing in the United States.
Wow. At the time, in July of 2024, Khalifa apologized for his actions and said that the cops treated him with respect. Last night's show was amazing. I didn't mean any disrespect to the country of Romania by lighting up on stage, the 38-year-old Pittsburgh native stated on X. They were very respectful and let me go. I'll be back soon, but without a big-ass joint next time.
Cannabis is a key theme to his music. The song he smoked to on stage, Young, Wild, and Free, specifically says, roll one, smoke one, and that everybody was just having a good time by doing so. Despite the Romanian's court verdict on Thursday, it is highly unlikely that he will be extradited for his illicit concert antics. A local legal expert explained that Romanian authorities will nevertheless submit a formal judicial request to the American officials.
Given the defendant's wealth and connections, Romania's lack of real negotiating power on extradition, and the legal and political status of cannabis in the U.S., it is highly unlikely that Wiz will be sent to serve a prison sentence over there in Romania, said Romanian criminologist Vlad Saha in a statement provided to the BBC. Romania is a European nation with fairly strict drug laws, and Romanian law can impose a prison sentence of up to 2 years on anyone caught possessing a personal stash of cannabis.
Khalifa originally received a fine of approximately $830 US, but prosecutors later sought a harsher penalty for his public lawlessness. The judge describes his behavior as abstemious and a bad influence on local youth.
Mm-hmm.
So, but while he may not be extradited to that country, I don't know. He said he'd go back, but now that he's basically, if he's not going to show up for his 9 months in jail, he becomes a wanted man in that country, would he not?
Well, yeah. If they really want to make a point, they would arrest him upon him landing there.
Correct. Yeah.
Throw him in jail, and he'd be there for 9 months.
Yeah, I don't. If I was him, I wouldn't take a chance. I wouldn't take a risk to go back. No way. Not at all. All right, that's our first 4 stories of the day. We got 4 more to go after break. And talking about break, we'll be right back. You're watching Psychedelics and Cannabis Educational News here at paceradio.net and 420pace.ca. I just got to find a commercial. There we go.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
Campbellford Lifestyle Shop. Open Monday to Friday from 10 till 7 p.m. or by chance. Check out our flags, our t-shirts, plus our hats. And look of that supply of rolling papers, plus much more. We've got bongs and your favorite herbal vaporizers. Look at all the incense we have, as well as for those who collect knives, check out these knives in our collection. And while you're here, stop in to see Shay at the piercing room, where you can get poked by Shay. Daily deals, check them out. Campbellford Lifestyle Shop, 17 Bridge Street West, Campbellford, Ontario.
What do you find at paceradio.net? People advocating cannabis education.
Limestone City Hydroponics is Kingston, Ontario's hydroponics shop. Take your growing to the next level and create the optimal environment with a tent kit, or maximize your yield with an ebb and flow flood table kit. Either way, Limestone City Hydroponics has more sizes and options to fit your needs. Are you looking for the power of the sun that adapts to your budget? Then look no further, as they have professional grow lighting. They have indoor grow systems that are easy and cost effective, with many options to fit your living space and lifestyle. Cultivate your growing potential. We have everything you need to succeed. And if you can't make it to the store, they offer local delivery to the greater Kingston area. Remember, when you're looking for experts to help you grow, then look no further than the locally owned Limestone City Hydroponics, 105 Sunderland Drive in Kingston, Ontario. Call them at 613-548-0420. Rerolled Saturdays. Check it out. Nothing but non-stop cannabis and psychedelic programming. Find it at 420pace.ca.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
And you're with Psychedelics Cannabis Educational News, and we're going to get started off with a story on psychedelics. It's just a short story.
Coming to us from Gene Online. Researchers analyzed psilocybin-assisted therapy's role in recovering dissociated traumatic memories.
Researchers have critically examined the recovery of dissociated dissociated traumatic memories during a psilocybin-assisted therapy in a commentary published in the Journal of Eating Disorders. The study, led by Campbellford and colleagues, addresses a controversial topic with psychology and therapeutic practices. The analysis focuses on the potential implications of psilocybin treatment for individuals with dissociated memories linked to trauma, raising questions about its therapeutic applications and risks. Go ahead.
The commentary evaluates findings from a recent study that explored the use of psilocybin, a naturally occurring psychedelic compound, in therapeutic settings. The researchers scrutinize how psilocybin may influence memory recall, particularly regarding repressed or dissociated traumatic memories. They highlight both the potential benefits and challenges associated with this approach, emphasizing the need for further research to better understand its effects. The discussion contributes to ongoing debates surrounding the integration of psychedelics into mental health treatments.
There you go.
I think the point with that is talk therapy is very, very important. They use one word in there that's very, very, it's massive. It's integration. And yes, the psychedelic therapy helps people in some cases to remember, and in some cases to just have a body remembering of the trauma in order to release it and to heal it. But talk therapy goes hand in hand with it for the integration purposes. And yeah, the two can work really, really well together.
Good. Alrighty. On to the next story.
Coming to us from Cannabis Health, 12 things we've learned about medical cannabis in 2025.
As we look back on 2025, it's been another year of deepening understanding about how medical cannabis is being used in the UK. Research from Curaleaf Clinic's UK Medical Cannabis Registry, the largest of its kind, alongside other studies, has offered valuable insight into patient experience across a wide range of conditions. Our work is guided by a simple principle: improving patient care. By analyzing patterns in symptoms, tolerable, and treatment approaches, we aim to generate insights that support clinicians and help patients make informed decisions.
This year, 15 new peer-reviewed studies added further detail to how patients respond to treatment in real-world settings. And here are some of the key things we've learned. One of the most significant developments this year has been the publication of longer follow-up studies. Previous research often looked at patients for just 3 to 6 months, but new studies have now tracked patients 18 to 24 months. This longer-term perspective helps us better understand how people's experiences may change over time.
Yeah, endometriosis affects 6 to 10% of women of reproductive age and can cause significant pelvic pain. Our review examined all valuable studies in this field, including surveys of people who use cannabis for endometriosis symptoms. Importantly, the research identified that high-quality clinical trials are still needed in this area. This was reinforced by a UK Medical Cannabis Registry study assessing the outcomes of patients in the UK, outlining changes in the affective dimensions of their pain alongside physical symptoms.
Insomnia affects millions of people in the UK and may have, tried, and many have tried multiple licensed medications before considering medical cannabis. Interestingly, patients over 50 with insomnia were more likely to experience clinically meaningful changes in sleep quality compared with younger cohorts, potentially due to age-related differences in cannabinoid metabolism or sleep architecture. These patterns indicate that age may play a meaningful role in treatment response and should be considered in prescribing decisions.
They say that perhaps one of the most sobering findings this year came from analysis of illegal cannabis products submitted for testing to the Widenos drug checking service. The research found that over 1/3 of samples contain psychoactive alterants, with synthetic cannabinoids being the most common. What? Vapor products show particularly high contamination rates. This research highlights the potential dangers of unregulated cannabis and underscores why quality controlled pharmacy dispensed products are important for those using cannabis products. Where was that done at?
This was over in the UK. So
yeah.
Interesting. We're going to talk about post-traumatic stress injuries. Post-traumatic stress injuries can be a challenging condition to manage. And our study following patients for up to 18 months looked at how patients' symptoms, sleep quality, and anxiety levels changed over time. This research also found differences in response between males and females, adding to emerging evidence that, genetic sex may influence therapeutic response.
When it comes to MS, they say that MS can cause a wide range of symptoms, including pain, plasticity, sleep problems, and anxiety. An updated analysis tracking people for up to 24 months looked at MS-specific quality of life measures as well as general well-being. With over 2.8 million people living with MS worldwide, understanding all treatment options available is important for patient care.
Absolutely. Complex regional pain syndrome. The first dedicated real-world evidence for cannabis-based medicines for CRPS, a chronic pain condition that is relatively rare and difficult to treat. These findings may offer clinicians an additional option for a condition that often responds poorly to standard modern treatments.
Yeah. Substance use disorder and harm reduction. They say for the first time we published an analysis of patients treated for substance use disorder. This included people with opioid use disorder, alcohol use disorder, and other substance use conditions. This limited study provided evidence towards a harm reduction role for medical cannabis in individuals with previous study misuse.
Oh, yeah, it's beautiful.
And cannabis substitution programs, right?
Yep. Yeah. They're all over the place, and they have different names, so they're all amazing, every single one of them. Epilepsy. But 1/3 of people with epilepsy don't achieve adequate seizure control with licensed modern anti-seizure medications. Patients aged 55 and over were more than 8 times more likely to achieve meaningful changes in epilepsy-specific quality of life, suggesting that older adults with treatment-resistant epilepsy may respond differently to younger adults, potentially reflecting different responses according to the cause of epilepsy.
Hypermobility-associated chronic pain is gaining attention. They say in 2025 saw the examination of cannabis-based medicinal products in patients with hypermobility spectrum disorder and hypermobility Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. These connective tissue conditions can cause chronic pain that's often difficult to manage with conventional treatments. The research tracked patients for up to 18 months, showing sustained changes in pain levels and health-related quality of life.
Cancer pain remains an important area of focus. With everything else, cancer was the one that really brought our attention, and it got the first medical approval here in Canada, anyway. And I think it's amazing that it goes so much further. But yeah, cancer remains an important area of focus. New research has examined how patients with cancer-related pain reported their experiences when prescribed cannabis-based medicinal products. Cancer pain can be complex and often requires multiple approaches to management. This study looked at pain intensity, sleep quality, and overall quality of life.
Misinformation online is a growing concern, they say. A systematic review examining medical cannabis content on YouTube has highlighted concerns about the quality of information available online. The research found that while YouTube is a major source of health information for many people, the platform's algorithms may prioritize engagement over accuracy. This study emphasizes the importance of seeking information from reliable, evidence-based sources and discussing treatment options with qualified healthcare professionals.
And looking ahead to 2026 and beyond, these studies provide valuable insight into medical cannabis use in the UK. Real-world evidence from registries like the UK Medical Cannabis Registry helps bridge the current evidence gap by showing how cannabis is used in routine clinical practice and what patients experience. However, randomized controlled trials remain essential to improve access beyond private clinics. There are encouraging signs of international progress in 2025. 2 major clinical trials across Europe examined medical cannabis for chronic low back pain. These studies mark significant advances and demonstrate that high-quality research in this area is both possible and necessary.
Now, what this body of research does show is that medical cannabis is being increasingly prescribed for a diverse range of conditions, typically when people have not found adequate relief from licensed medications. The studies also demonstrate that researchers are carefully monitoring patient experiences, including both reported benefits and side effects. Importantly, it also shows that patients in the UK are committed to contributing to research around medical cannabis. It is through their efforts that we have been able to make strides in understanding to date. So thank you to all those who have given their time to contribute to research, and they will continue to do so in the coming year. So there you go.
Amazing.
It's always good when they can, highlight the stuff that comes out over the year.
Yeah. It's kind of neat to read it all in a story like that. Like here's the main things, right?
Yeah. And there was a story, was it last week that came out, an article came out last week. Like basically annually 4,000 research articles or papers are done every year on cannabis. So but need more research, right? So all right, on to our next story. Here we go.
Coming to us from cannabis.net. Why are states trying to repeal legal cannabis programs in 2026? The legalization backlash.
Just when you thought cannabis legalization train was unstoppable, reality is about to slap you in the face. According to a recent Vice article, several states are considering repealing their illegal cannabis markets in 2026. That's right. Not just pausing expansion, not just adding more regulations, but actually rolling back legalization entirely and returning to prohibition. If you've been celebrating legalization as a done deal, as inevitable progress that can't be reversed, you need to wake up. Cannabis legalization is fragile. It's under attack, and the forces pushing for repeal are powerful, well-funded, and deadly serious.
Yeah, let me break down what's happening, who's behind it, and why cannabis enthusiasts need to understand that legalization means absolutely nothing until cannabis is fully descheduled federally and we have real permanent protections for consumers' rights to purchase, produce, and sell. And let me tell you, like it says permanent, nothing's ever permanent. They can turn around and change their mind. And, several states with existing legal cannabis markets are facing serious repeal efforts heading into 2026. We're not talking about states that rejected legalization. We're talking about states that legalized, implemented markets, generated tax revenue, and are now being pressured to undo it all. The pushback is coming from multiple directions.
Conservative political groups, organizations that never accepted legalization in the first place, are using every tool in their disposal to reverse it. They're funding ballot initiatives, lobbying state legislators, and running fear-based campaigns about the dangers of legal cannabis.
Some law enforcement organizations, despite data showing that legalization doesn't increase crime and actually frees up resources for serious offenses, some law enforcement groups continue pushing prohibition narratives. Why? Follow the money. Drug war funding, asset forfeiture, and institutional inertia.
Concerned parent groups, often funded by pharmaceutical companies and other interests with skin in the game. These groups push narratives about protecting children while ignoring that legal regulated markets are far better at preventing youth access than black markets.
Yeah. Some medical professionals, usually citing cherry-picked or misinterpreted data about cannabis harms, conveniently ignoring the far greater harms of alcohol or pharmaceutical alternatives. The arguments they're using are familiar. Cannabis is too potent now. It's causing mental health crisis. It's leading to impaired driving. It's harming children. The markets are out of control, etc. And never mind that the data doesn't support most, if not all, of these claims. Never mind that prohibition demonstrably failed for decades. The repeal movement isn't about facts, it's about power and money.
So let's talk about who's actually benefits from cannabis prohibition and why they're fighting so hard to restore it. Say big pharma. The big pharmaceutical industry loses about $10 billion annually in states with legal medical cannabis. Every person who chooses cannabis for pain relief, anxiety, insomnia, and other conditions is a person not buying their pills. True. Pharmaceutical companies have a direct financial interest in keeping cannabis illegal or so heavily restricted that they control the market. They don't fund repeal campaigns directly. That would be too obvious. Instead, they funnel money through concerned citizen groups, medical associations, and advocacy organizations that do their dirty work while maintaining plausible deniability.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you and I can both attest to that. I mean, my medical bill would be about $6,000 a month if it wasn't for cannabis. And I barely spend, like a fraction of that through VAC. So,
yeah, no opiates in this guy's system.
That's right. Private prison industry. Legal cannabis means fewer arrests, fewer prisoners, and less profit for private prison companies. The prison industry has lobbied against cannabis reform for decades and continues to fund opposition efforts through PACs and political donations.
The alcohol industry, they say, well, some alcohol companies have started investing in cannabis. Many still view it as a direct competitor. When people choose cannabis over alcohol, which they increasingly do, alcohol sales drop. The industry has vested interest in limiting cannabis access. I know we've just done a report here in Canada on how alcohol consumption has dropped because of cannabis. Yeah.
And that's why a lot of alcohol companies and cigarette companies are trying to get into the cannabis industry because they understand they're about to lose their shirts.
Yeah.
Right. So, yeah. Some law enforcement agencies, not all law enforcement opposes legalization. Many departments support it or are neutral. But some agencies benefit from prohibition through federal drug war funding, asset forfeiture programs, and institutional structures built around the drug war. Ending prohibition threatens their budgets and justifications for certain programs.
Pharmaceutical-funded medical organizations. Many medical groups that oppose cannabis legalization receive significant funding from pharmaceutical companies. Their medical concerns often align suspiciously well with their funders' financial interests.
Right? Conservative political organizations, some genuinely ideological, others funded by the interests listed above. They provide the political muscle and grassroots organizing to turn corporate interest into repeal movements.
Yeah, no, what repeal would actually mean. And if states successfully repeal their legal cannabis markets, here's what happens. Thousands of jobs are lost. Legal cannabis industries employ tens of thousands of people in each state. Bud tenders, growers, processors, delivery drivers, compliance officers, testing lab workers, and countless auxiliary businesses. Repeal means that all those cannabis jobs disappear overnight.
Yeah, tax revenue evaporates. States have become dependent on cannabis tax revenue, generating hundreds of millions of dollars annually. That money funds schools, drug treatment programs, funds law enforcement, and infrastructure. Repeal means those revenue streams disappear, forcing budget cuts or tax increases elsewhere.
The black market returns. It says, does anyone actually believe that repealing legal markets will make cannabis go away? The demand doesn't disappear. It just moves back to the unregulated black markets where products aren't tested. There's no ID checks, criminal organizations profit, so on and so forth.
Yeah. Arrests resume, the most tragic consequence. People go back to being arrested, prosecuted, and incarcerated for protecting a plant or possessing a plant. Lives get destroyed, families get torn apart, communities get devastated, particularly minority communities that are disproportionately targeted by drug enforcement.
Medical patients suffer. Patients using cannabis for legitimate medical conditions lose legal access. they're forced to either break the law or return to pharmaceutical alternatives that are often less effective and more dangerous.
Mm-hmm. And, why state legalization was never enough. Here's the uncomfortable truth that too many cannabis advocates don't want to acknowledge. State level legalization without federal descheduling is built on sand. It can be washed away in a single election, a ballot initiative, or a legislature that decides prohibition was better after all. As long as cannabis remains federally prohibited, and especially as long as it's on the Controlled Substance Act, state level legalization is vulnerable.
Now, federal preemption, the federal government can at any time decide to enforce federal prohibition in legal states. We've been lucky that most recent administrations chose not to, but that's policy, not law. Policy changes with elections.
Oh, yeah. Banking and financial services. Cannabis businesses can't access normal banking because banks are federally regulated. This creates security risks, limits growth, and makes legitimate businesses operate like criminal enterprises. And this is one that affects the rest of the world, too.
Exactly. Interstate commerce, you can't move cannabis across state lines, even between two legal states, because the crossing line or the crossing state line triggers federal jurisdiction. This prevents economies of scale and market efficacy.
Tax discrimination. Section 280E of the tax code prevents cannabis businesses from normal tax deductions, crushing them with effective tax rates of up to 80%. This applies regardless of state legality because cannabis is federally prohibited.
Research barriers. Federal Schedule I status continues to restrict research, limiting our understanding of cannabis benefits and risks. This allows prohibitionists to claim we don't know enough about cannabis, while maintaining the barriers to prevent us from learning more.
Yeah. Vulnerability to repeal. As we're seeing now, state legalization can be reversed by motivated opposition groups, particularly when federal prohibition provides legitimacy to anti-cannabis arguments.
Yeah. Moving cannabis to Schedule III doesn't solve these problems. Rescheduling the cannabis 2 doesn't either. The only solution that provides actual lasting protection is complete removal from the Controlled Substances Act. It's called descheduling. Here's what federal descheduling would accomplish.
Yeah. Permanent legal status. Cannabis would be treated like alcohol or tobacco, regulated, but fundamentally legal. States could still regulate within their borders, but they couldn't create criminal penalties for simple possession without violating federal law.
Banking access. Cannabis businesses could use normal banking and financial services, making operations safer and more efficient.
Interstate commerce. Businesses could operate across state lines, allowing for economies of scale and market development.
You'd have tax fairness because Section 280E would no longer apply, allowing cannabis businesses normal tax deductions like any other industry.
Research freedom. Scientists could study cannabis without DEA permission and regulatory barriers, accelerating our understanding of the plant's properties.
Federal protection. State repeal efforts would be meaningless for individual possession and use rights, just as states can't criminalize alcohol possession even if they wanted to.
End to federal prosecution. No more federal cannabis arrests, prosecutions, or imprisonments. Federal war on cannabis users would be over.
And why you shouldn't celebrate yet. Every time a state legalizes cannabis, we see celebrations, victory laps, and proclamations that prohibition is over. But prohibition isn't over until it's over federally. And even state-level legalization is increasingly under threat. The cannabis community needs to understand that legalization is not a done deal. It's not inevitable. And without federal descheduling, every state-level victory is vulnerable to reversal.
We need to stop acting like we've won what we've barely established, a beachhead. The forces opposing cannabis legalization haven't given up. They've regrouped and developed new strategies and are actively working to roll back the gains we've made. Celebrating state legalization while cannabis remains in the Controlled Substances Act is like celebrating winning the first quarter while you're still losing the game.
Yeah. So what needs to happen? Federal descheduling, complete removal of the Controlled Substances Act, not Schedule 3, not Schedule 2, off the schedule entirely.
Yeah. Consumer rights protection, federal law protecting individuals' right to possess, purchase, and grow cannabis for personal use, regardless of state laws.
Interstate commerce, clear federal framework, allowing cannabis businesses to operate from across state lines.
Expungement, that's a big one.
Yes.
Automatic expungement of all federal cannabis convictions and federal incentives for states to do the same.
Social equity programs, real investment in communities destroyed by the war on drugs, not token programs that get defunded or ignored.
Bank reform, explicit federal protections for cannabis businesses to access banking, insurance, and financial services.
Now, research funding, federal funding for cannabis research to replace the decades of knowledge suppressed by prohibition. Anything less than this leaves cannabis legalization vulnerable to repeal, federal interference, continued prohibition by another name.
Yep, absolutely.
Absolutely. Yep. All right, there you go. There's a more. Do you want to cover the rest of this? I see we're after 11.
Yeah, no, I think we're good. I think we've got most of it there.
All righty, yeah.
Bottom line, we've kind of broke that down point by point.
Yeah, I'd say so. Exactly. Yeah. Now, I didn't mention any states' names, but I know that there are states. I was actually one of the stories I was going to use today until I saw that one there. Take a look at our Psychedelics and Cannabis educational Facebook feed, and you will see that there are states that are working on repealing cannabis legalization.
It's so sad.
Yeah, that's right. And as it says, it can change from administration to administration, from government to government.
Yep.
Till it's changed federally, right? So.
Yep.
All righty. Last story of the day. I don't know how long it is, but we'll find out, I guess. Here we go.
Coming to us from StratCan. A report provides insight into enforcement against unlicensed cannabis stores in Ontario.
A recent decision from Ontario's Inspector General of Policing found that the Waterloo Regional Police Service was in compliance with policing requirements, despite a complaint in 2024 alleging a failure to take enforcement action against illegal cannabis dispensaries. The 21-page report provides insight into the law enforcement process for investigating unlicensed cannabis stores.
Following a complaint made by the public about 2 illegal cannabis stores operating in the Cambridge area, records show WRPS escalated the issue internally and engaged with the Ontario Provincial Police Joint Forces Cannabis Enforcement Team to develop an investigative strategy. The WRPS also sought legal advice from the Public Prosecution Services of Canada as to these stores' asserted indignity. Following a complaint on April 15th in 2024, police began to investigate in June of 2024. The WRPS then informed the landlords and owners of their non-compliance with federal law. Police officers also visited both locations to caution employees that they could face arrest.
In July of 2024, police officers conducted surveillance at both locations and formed grounds to believe that dispensaries continue to sell cannabis in contravention of the Cannabis Act. WRPS officers again visited the stores to inform the employees and sent a letter to each store asking them to cease operations. On August the 9th, 2024, about 3 months after the initial complaint, the WRPS received judicial authorization for a search warrant, executed on August the 14th of 2024. At locations on King Street East and Walnut Street in Cambridge. This led to the arrest of employees and the seizure of unregulated cannabis products and Canadian currency.
Media report at the time identified the location on Walnut Street as Grand River Medicinal. Then, in October of 2024, the WRPS received information that one of the cannabis stores had resumed operations, leading to judicial authorization for an additional search warrant on November 6th of 2024. However, prior to executing the search warrant, the building's owner evicted the store following engagement with the WRPS asset forfeiture unit.
The Inspector General concluded that the WRPS criminal investigation into the complaint was reasonable and commendable, noting they followed all the proper steps and procedures in a reasonable, timely manner. The investigation also provided details about WRPS engagement with the complainant, who is said to have made approximately 75 inquiries to various agencies, including municipal bylaw offices, the AGCO, WRPS, and the Stratford Police Services.
The report notes that despite the complainant's repeated efforts, they were repeatedly redirected to different agencies, each of which deferred responsibility to another. While WRPS was said to have referenced priorities like the fentanyl crisis, SPS referenced legal complexities involving cannabis stores claiming Indigenous status, saying that enforcement would only follow direction from the federal government. The provincial inspector General also noted that because the two locations first identified by the initial complaint were operating under a questionable Indigenous banner, the Waterloo Police sought the direction of the Public Prosecution Services of Canada, who informed the police they would prosecute any charges as a result of enforcement.
PPSC was also reported to have informed WRPS that concerns about claims of Indigenous status should not drive enforcement decisions, and that the federal agency would prosecute such cases if they brought to trial. Now, all references to enforcement actions by the WRPS in the report refer to federal cannabis laws, not provincial, which also deal with the unauthorized sale of cannabis. Now, a CTV report in 2025 of May says that Corey Van Ursel, the president of the True North Cannabis Company, which has a location in Cambridge near two unlicensed stores, had reached out to Waterloo Police to look into the matter. These stores were Sovereign Toke and the Grand River Medicinal. There you go. Interestingly, they said that the one police force wouldn't do anything because they want to hear from the federal government on the Indigenous stores. Whereas it, Nova Scotia.
Well, I mean, and that's where it's heading eventually. One of these Indigenous stores, any one of them across Canada, needs to go through the system of appeals and make it all the way to the Supreme Court of Canada. And I think that'll be a beautiful follow up to Owen's win, because we haven't still gotten what Owen won yet.
Yeah.
Right.
So there's always more.
There's always more. So I'm, not that I want anybody to be arrested or whatnot, but if we're going to do this, let's do this and get it over with.
All righty. Anything else before we say goodbye?
Merry Christmas.
That's right. Merry Christmas. This is the last report until the new year. Unless something major comes up, and then Cindy and I will get together and say, hey, let's report on this. Right? Other than that, we won't see us the next year. But thanks for tuning in for 2025. We look forward to seeing you in 2026. Geez, 2026. That used to seem like so long coming, like when I was young.
And I'm still looking forward to the party of 1999, right?
Yeah, exactly. All right, that's a report for today. Thanks to our buds at the Campbellford Lifestyle Shop, Limestone City Hydroponics.ca at ease.ca. And thanks to you guys, everybody, for tuning in over the last year and years. And as I always say, don't forget to educate, medicate, and do not incarcerate.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
The opinions of the individuals during this broadcast are their own, and may not be the opinions of their group or other organizations they may be involved with. All medical advice during our broadcast is not a medical opinion and should be checked with your medical physician.
Enjoy the buzz of legalization with Campbellford Lifestyle Shop. From lights to plant nutrients, books, consumption accessories, and more, we've got all your basics to grow or consume cannabis. Visit our info center or take a look at our piercing services and body jewelry, now available in-store through Campbellford Lifestyle Shop, 17 Bridge Street West, Campbellford.
Limestone City Hydroponics is Kingston, Ontario's hydroponics shop. Take your growing to the next level and create the optimal environment with a tent kit, or maximize your yield with an ebb and flow flood table kit. Either way, Limestone City Hydroponics has more sizes and options to fit your needs. Are you looking for the power of the sun that adapts to your budget? Then look no further, as they have professional grow lighting. They have indoor grow systems that are easy and cost effective, with many options to fit your living space and lifestyle. Cultivate your growing potential. We have everything you need to succeed. And if you can't make it to the store, they offer local delivery to the greater Kingston area. Remember, when you're looking for experts to help you grow, then look no further than the locally owned Limestone City Hydroponics, 105 Sunderland Drive in Kingston, Ontario. Call them at 613-548-0420. We are people advocating cannabis education here at paceradio.net.